Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project. I'm your host, Duc with Tri-City Equity Group. Today we have Bruce Petersen on the show. Known as the apartment guy, he has raised over $30 million in equity across over 1,100 units valued at $90 million. With me is my co-host, Vince Gibbons.
Hey, Duc. Super excited about today's show. Bruce is an awesome guy. I met him in Orlando last fall at a Jake and Gino event. Super down to earth, really level. Like he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's going to tell you how it is. And I really love that, especially in the industry where there's a lot of people that kind of sugarcoat a lot of how hard some of this syndication and being an operator can be. So he breaks down a lot of that, especially in his new book that we're going to be going over in the call. So definitely a lot of nuggets, a lot of actionable stuff. I even took notes for our own business. So you're going to want to stay tuned and listen to this podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Cash Flow Project. Today we have a very special guest, Bruce Petersen. The apartment guy, Bruce Petersen, is a syndicator of large multifamily properties throughout Central Texas, ranging in size from 48 to 292 units. In 2016, he was awarded the Austin Apartment Association's Independent Rental Owner of the Year and the National Apartment Association's Independent Rental Owner of the Year for 2017, as well as Think Realty's Multifamily Investor of the Year 2019. Bruce targets stabilized properties where he can buy a cash-flowing asset and drive value through building community and improved operations. He is able to do this by implementing his proven systems and deploying his experienced staff to replicate his business model across new acquisitions. Most recently, he wrote a book, Syndication's a Bitch, and Other Truths You Haven't Been Told. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, so how did you get started in your journey to earn passive cash flow?
So the story is, right, I told you a little bit before we got started here that I'm a college dropout. I barely got out of high school, and being a college dropout, I don't have a whole lot going on for me professionally, so I fell into retail. I did that for about 18 to 20 years and just hit a wall. 80 to 100-hour weeks, 110-hour weeks will drive you into the ground, and it did it to me. So I kind of retired, I guess you'd say it, like quasi-retired at 43. No kids, no wife, no girlfriend, nothing, just me. And I thought, okay, well, I'm 43. Optimistically, I've got 60 to 80 more years of life. All my friends are still going to work. They have kids. They have a life. And I got nothing to do but screw around in my yard all day. So I just started trying to figure it all out. You keep hearing about real estate. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So I did a Google search and looked for a mentor to teach me the ropes. It took a while because most people didn't want to teach you how to do it back then. But I found somebody to take me under their wing, showed me the ropes, and I just took off. Bought my first property in 2012 and, have since bought 6 for 1,100 units and done really well with it and had a lot of fun with it. So it's the best thing I've done, and it's a blast.
You have a background as a stockbroker. Can you comment on how multifamily compares to stocks and how you decided on your portfolio allocation?
Yeah, so I glossed right over that, right? Because I'm going to college thinking that I belong in college and I'm going to get a degree somehow. Well, my degree plan is finance. And I thought, okay, well, I'm in Austin, Texas. Let me start interviewing for a stockbroker position. Knowing I won't get it. I don't have the degree yet. But I wanted to practice, right? So when I did get my degree, because I still thought I was going to get a degree somehow, I'd be ready. I'd have practice. Well, shit, I got the first job I went for. I'm like, oh, wow, this is weird. Then I realized this is not as glamorous as I thought it was. It was the Wolf of Wall Street kind of situation. But I had to get tested, certified. I had to pass my Series 7 and Series 63 exams to practice. And so I learned a lot about how to invest. And I've always been interested in investing in the stock market. So, I did a lot of studying on my own. But, so I did that for a little while until I couldn't do it anymore and fell into retail, like I said. But what that taught me is how to assess a company, how to read a P&L. And I got a lot of that in retail as well, but how to understand financials, the way money flowed, what cash flow was all about. So yeah, there was a big skill set there that I learned. And again, in retail, I've led people my whole life. And so I think it prepared me well for, a business in real estate. And a lot of people don't understand that. Well, I work at 7-Eleven. I don't know anything about this. I can't do that. Well, look, what do you do at 7-Eleven? Well, I'm the night manager, or maybe I'm the shift leader somewhere in retail even. Have you ever led people? Well, yeah, I've led a couple of people. Well, I mean, if you have the ability to lead people, you're a good communicator, you can do this. So, both of my backgrounds, retail and a stockbroker, kind of gave me some skills that really did transfer to multifamily or real estate investing.
Got it. I understand that you're working on a special needs apartment complex. Tell me more about that.
Well, so I'm not really working on it. It's something in the background that we're hoping to work on soon. I'd say soon, within the next 2 to 4 years. I have an autistic adult stepdaughter. And myself and my wife, I'm now married, what we want to do is create an apartment complex, basically a safe community for adults with disabilities, with intellectual disabilities usually. Have it be a place where they can be amongst peers, feel safe, feel welcomed, provide outings for them, because many of them don't drive. They won't have the ability to have a job. Their sphere of friends, if you will, is very limited. So we're going to try to create a safe place for them where they feel welcome, they feel safe, and give them independence, because they don't have a lot of independence usually. And to take care of an adult with Down syndrome or with autism or some of these other things, it's crazy expensive. It's easy to spend $10,000 to $100,000 a year trying to get these adults or young some teens to get them the support that they need. So what we plan to do is it's going to be kind of an affordable situation. It'll be done as a nonprofit. And it'll be on a sliding scale of affordability, that if you work at 7-Eleven or work at McDonald's, good vocations, right? But you're probably not making a whole lot of money. Well, you will probably be able to put your adult there for free, right? If you make $300,000 a year, well, you'll pay market rent. So it'll be an affordability scale that we'll implement. Again, it's in the planning stages. It's all in our brains right now, but that's what we hope to do in the next few years.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Tell me about the most challenging deal that you sponsored. How did you find it and structure it?
The most challenging deal, let's see. They're all challenging, but probably the most creative one that we did, and it took the most effort. We bought a two property portfolio, 484 units, where we had to raise $12 million. We bought them in 2 stages. We were trying to buy 2 at the same time. One of the 2 fell out. So then we kept our offering open, our PPM open, for a few more months, explained it to the investors that, look, our plan was to always buy 2 anyways. So we're going to keep the offering open for another 2 to 4 months. And hopefully in that time frame, we can find a suitable replacement property. So we did. So we did buy 2. It, showed us some places that we really needed to kind of shore things up. On the asset management side, as far as handling the investors, we now have a portal that we use. We use Invest Next. It's not cheap, but it makes our life a whole lot easier. So things went well, but like any cash raise, it's a little stressful. Are we going to be able to pull together $12 million? Because prior to that, the biggest cash raise we had ever done was about $6 to $6.5 million. So it stretched us. We got through it, and we learned a lot from it.
Got it. And how's that deal performing in the current environment?
Well, we're doing well. Now, having said that, coronavirus is kind of, it's been unnerving a little bit, but we're dealing with it. The properties, of the 2 properties that we bought, one's in Austin. The one in Austin is almost 200 units. We just executed a supplemental loan, which is basically the same end result as a cash out refi, but we just executed that. Now, the interesting thing about that is we were able to pull out a $3.3 million supplemental loan, but because of all the chaos right now, Fannie Mae, many of you have heard, they have changed not their underwriting necessarily, but they've changed their reserve and escrow requirements. So of the $3.3 million that we got in loan proceeds, they held on to $2.1 million of it until we hit certain benchmarks for an extended period of time. And once we prove that we can hit those and maintain those benchmarks, they will then release that money to us. But they're going to hold it for a minimum of 12 months before they release it to us. So, it worked out really well. We're very, very profitable on it, but it just didn't execute quite the way we thought it would. But everything's good.
Yep. Something very similar happened to us as well on our last deals. We got hit with 12 months of P&I in escrow until we hit a DSCR milestone. Luckily, the milestone was pretty low. It was like 1.27. So it's not a huge. They pretty much said as long as you don't go down in operations, then we'll release your funds. But they didn't set like a high bar for us.
Well, go down. We're all down, right? I'm sure everybody's down, at least some. But it's weird that they came up with a 1.27. That seems like a very arbitrary 1.27 instead of, it's usually 1.25 to 1.35.
Yeah, so that's what we bought it at. So when they penciled out, so that we bought at 1.27. So as long as they said, as long as your operations keep, as is or better in the next 12 months, gotcha. We'll release it.
Yeah, and if they only did PI, that's not bad because I was nailed with PI, TI, and operating expenses.
Wow.
So it was really, really bad. And if you're going to take out a loan of less than, I think it's $7 million, they're going to make you withhold 18 months, not 12 months of all that. Yeah. It gets tough.
Yeah, it definitely dilutes the numbers to make, can kill a deal real quick on your rate.
You'll eventually get it back, right? That's the thought. So eventually the deal will perform as expected. But until then, you probably have to put a ton more into a deal than you anticipated. Yep. So it's making purchasing right now with agency debt very, very tricky.
Yep. Yeah. And to, that conversation you had with Gino a few weeks back where he was, mentioning that seller financing is probably going to, start coming back into fashion because of that, as long as they have those, crazy 18 months of required reserves. People or sponsors are just either can't or won't come up with that much extra. So
right. And the people that are really getting caught are the people that were already under contract. And let's say they've already extended past their due diligence period and or their finance contingency if they had one. And then right at the last second, all this new stuff gets thrown at them. So now the deal doesn't work. Oh, crap. But now I'm hard on my earnest money.
Yep.
Well, look, dude, you lost. I don't know what to tell you because that happened with us. One of our buyers kind of got stuck holding the really, really bad bag. And, we're going to get his earnest money. So, that's why like the book talks about, this is tough.
Yep.
This takes a very strong will and a strong intestinal fortitude to be able to deal with the punches that you're going to take because you're going to take a lot of punches. Nobody saw these punches coming, right? It's a black swan thing. But the good syndicators, operators, deal sponsors, you're going to push through it. You're going to keep your head up. You're not going to panic and stress, and you'll get through this. It's not going to, you might not have the whole timeline that you thought or the distribution flow that you thought for a little while, but we'll all get through this.
So what's the biggest mistake that you've made, and what have you learned from that?
Biggest mistake, we're going to say not having to do with the management company because most people don't have their own management company. And that would even be just, you make a bad hire every now and then. But the biggest mistake, and I talk a lot about this, it's, something that a lot of people don't realize, and I sure as hell didn't realize it on my first deal. When you do a due diligence walkthrough, I'm going to walk every single unit. And I think most people are doing that nowadays. They used to only walk 10 to 20% of the units 5 to 10 years ago. But when you walk through, you're looking for leaks. You're looking for really bad things that are going to be capital events that you have to take care of when you take over. Well, the thing I didn't understand, say, okay, well, there's a bathtub there. Great. It looks like it's okay. Well, I didn't look very closely at the bathtubs. And if you're buying a property that has plastic or fiberglass bathtubs, which very many of them do, when you're buying a C or a D asset, I don't buy D, but if you're buying a C or D asset, those are usually 30 to 40 years old or older. And those plastic and fiberglass bathtubs have been there for 30 to 40 years many times. And over the years of stepping in those bathtubs, they flex a little bit each time you step in them. And eventually they fail. And If it's a unit upstairs, that failure is going to affect the unit downstairs. So if you would have noticed that on the initial walkthrough and right after takeover, addressed the bathtubs that were having issues, I could have probably done it for $200 or $300 per bathtub at the most. But now that they have failed, it turns into a $1,000 to $2,000 problem. So that was my biggest mistake, but it was just a mistake of not knowing.
Yep.
And that locks a lot of people up. Well, I don't know. How do I move forward? Because I don't know. That might happen to me. Look, just get out there, do the best you can, buy a deal with a margin of error, a margin of safety, and you can withstand when a few of these happen. But there's only one way to figure out how to get through it, and that's to live through it.
Exactly.
Got it. For someone looking to scale up their investing business, what advice would you give?
Well, the biggest thing for scale, first of all, syndication is all about scale, right? You can buy, maybe you and your family will buy a 6 to a 12, maybe a 24 unit, because that's all the capital you have. Well, you syndicate and it helps you scale. And we all know that. But the other part of it, and the more important part of it, is you have to learn to let go, right? My thing is you can't grow if you can't let go. And what I mean by that, if you're a control enthusiast or somebody that's going to micromanage the hell out of everything, you have to have your fingers in everything and look over everybody's shoulder. This is going to be really, really difficult. Read the book Scale or the E-Myth, and it talks a lot about this. You have to entrust those around you that you've hired to do a job. You got to give them the tools to do the job, explain the expectations, be able to keep an eye on it from a distance. Don't let them just go run off wild and not check on them. But you got to give them the leeway to make some mistakes and make decisions without you. Because if you don't, you can't do this all. Well, you can, but you're probably not going to be able to get past 1 to maybe 300 units. You're going to limit your growth. So the biggest thing is hire smarter people than you in the respective discipline that you need help with. Give them the expectation, give them the tools, and then just get the hell out of their way and let them do their job.
Exactly. All right. I'm up. All right. Let me go back to my notes here. Okay. So one thing I want to really drive home, you mentioned syndication is all about scale. So I'm going to kind of show you the difference of the velocity between Bruce and myself. So Bruce said he started 2012, bought one property and 6 since then. Now he has 1,100 units, financially free, running, multiple companies. In his book, he says every time he wants a raise, he just go a 6-figure raise, he just goes buys another property. Like these awesome things. Put it on my scale. So in 2016, I did my first live and flip. I got 130,000 out of that. I was like, I'm a genius. This was awesome. And then I liquidated my IRA. So I had around 180, 190,000. And that was my money to go into real estate. I didn't scale. I didn't go into syndication. I went the other route, which at the time, that's all I knew was buy small multifamily properties. I bought a bunch of duplexes, fourplexes, and everything like that. And fast forward between 2016 and now, I'm at 120 units. Where if I went to, because my eyes opened up the last year and I scaled up, put it on Bruce's timeline, that different velocity, how fast he was scaling because he went through a syndication route, that I would have been better off just giving my money to a syndicator to learn the process for a couple of years and then jumping in, commercial full time. Because you know what? Those duplexes and fourplexes I bought in 2016, 17, 18, they're worth like 5% more now than they were when I bought them, because it's comp value approach versus income value approach. So my fourplex appraised for 180,000. I bought it for 170. So the scale and the velocity of your cash flow of your portfolio is going to be substantially greater with the going commercial right out of the gate. So if you can, to Bruce's point also, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, get a mentor, join a group, join a community to do it. But definitely I go to groups and I see people that have done 10 to 15 years of only doing the small deals before they realize that they're not achieving their goal that they thought they were going to do by just buying single families and trying to hodgepodge together a portfolio. So, and then they realize that, commercial is much better suited to scale, if that's what your goal is. So I just want to kind of point out the different velocities of, going commercial versus going the resident, the smaller route.
Right. So I want to talk about a couple of things there real quick. So it's very admirable what you did, right? So you learned that single family, you don't have the upside. If you're going to buy a duplex, threeplex, fourplex, you're going to sell that to another investor. And it's not based on income, it's based on comp. So you're pretty much never going to make much on the back end unless you buy something seriously distressed.
Yep.
But you got out there, you did something. It might not have been the most optimal way for you to have scaled now looking back on it, but you took action. You made shit happen. You did things. Now, honestly, that route is a hell of a lot easier than what I'm doing. Tremendously easier. You can't grow as fast as me, no, but there's nobody looking over your shoulder now, and that goes both ways. There's nobody looking over your shoulder and micromanaging you, even though your documents say, I make all the day-to-day operational decisions. Some of them are still going to question some things you do. But at the same time, that can work in your favor. If you didn't have people to answer to, you may have made some more reckless, more risky decisions because you didn't have to worry about anybody else calling you out on, well, where's my 7% return? Well, so you've got that. But now to really illustrate scale, we bought the 48 unit. I bought the 48 unit, then met my wife. But after I bought that, I held it for 2.5 years, sold it 2.5 years later, got a 300% return for my investors. But then I waited almost another year before I bought my second. So from the time I bought my first to the time I bought my second, it was about 3 years, right? So I consciously taken 2 different breaks in my growth to tighten up the ship, to pull back, make sure we're positioned to go forward again. But there was a point where over 18 months, we bought 860 units. Wow. So the scale, it can really move very quickly. You got to make sure you're ready for that very quick scale. You need to be able to hire people quickly. Now, having said that, if you've got your own management company, which we do, if you don't have your own management company, you can give it to a third party. It's a little bit easier to do it. But yeah, I mean, again, syndication is great. It can help you scale, but you have a lot of people to answer to now. And I'm only getting a portion of the proceeds that we earn, where you're getting all the proceeds. When you own a 24 unit by yourself, all that cash flow goes directly into your pocket.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm lucky my eyes got opened up a little sooner. Took about 2-3 years to realize the flaws with scaling with the small properties. But I still am glad I did it that way, because I kind of attribute them to, like, these are my sandbox properties. Like, if I mess up, the whole world on a fourplex, like, I'm not going bankrupt over it. So I made a lot of mistakes on that. Like, you pretty much listed them all in your book, like over renovating units without doing market surveys. And I'll get to some of the other ones in a second. But yeah, so with that, making those mistakes on a 4 unit, now I'm going to save, hundreds of thousands of dollars by not making them again as I scale up. So I don't regret doing that way at all. All right. So are you buying with, we're recording this May 16th. Are you buying deals still in the midst of this, or at least looking in the midst of this coronavirus?
Nope. Not at all. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are actively looking, actively purchasing. There's still things that are being closed. I get emails all the time. And, I'm sure they'll do okay. And, I wish them the best. But I'm not a very paranoid person. I'm not a chicken little sky is falling person. But at the same time, I'm looking around going, I have no idea how to underwrite anything right now, because April collections were better than we expected. June, it's going down a little bit on most of my properties. Some of my properties are actually going up, believe it or not. But most properties are coming down very slightly, but they're still coming down. And then June may come down even further, July even further. They're talking about this next heroes package of stimulus. So I just don't know what to make of collections going forward for at least the next 3 to 6 months, and maybe longer. So how do you put value on anything right now? I'm not so eager to grow, like, oh my God, I got to get that next property because that's the one that's finally going to allow me to quit my W-2 job. I'm very lucky that we're not in that situation. So honestly, we're on the sidelines. When we have a better feel for where we are as an industry, oh, hell yeah, we're going to be buying again. But right now, there's just too much unknown for us.
Exactly. And then I just watched that Sam Zell interview he did, and he said the same thing. He's like, I'm just waiting, right? Nobody knows what's going on. We're seeing, our eyes are out. But all right, let's switch. So Bruce just came out with a new book, Syndication is a Bitch. I got it on Kindle, read it through between today is Saturday. So I bought it Thursday night, finished it last night. Absolutely outstanding book here. So I'm going to go through some of my biggest takeaways that I took that were relevant kind of that to me, and kind of go over those. So one of the biggest ones is, mistakes of not doing a thorough market survey when it comes to deciding what the rent premium is and what you need to do as far as upgrades to achieve it. This is definitely not a, you build it, they will come or they will pay type thing. Like, you're not like, you can't just go into a place and like, I'm going to drop $5,000, raise rents $300 and everybody's going to pay. And that's just how it is. It is not that. You have to do thorough market research to make sure that the families and the people in that neighborhood you're in can afford to pay that, because it doesn't matter if there's, stainless steel appliances. If they can't afford it, they're not going to pay for it. And that's just how it is. So that was a big takeaway is make sure you do a thorough market survey, do your due diligence as far as secret shopping the areas around it, make sure that see what amenities they offer and the packages they offer at their properties, because you're probably not going to be able to push too much higher than that in that neighborhood. You can try on a couple of units, and if it works, then maybe you can scale it, but don't go in there and just start renovating 30 units without testing it out first, right?
Right. So again, two things on that one, right? So the first thing is, don't assume anything. A good place to start, right? So you're going to walk the neighborhood, basically. You're going to go secret shop other places. You're going to do market surveys. But the basic math of it, let's say you buy a property that has average rents of $800. And you think if I spend $5,000 on a unit upgrade, I can get $200 more. That math works out. I think that it's worth that value. Well, the value is worth what somebody's going to pay for it, not what your spreadsheet told you, right? So what I would do now is say, okay, if I want to take it from $800 a month in rent to $1,000 a month in rent, $1,000 a month in rent times 12 months is $12,000. On our properties, our leasing criteria is you have to make at least 3 times the rent. Mm-hmm. So if we're about to charge them $12,000 in rent, if that submarket does not have median income of at least $36,000 a year, which is a fairly low bar for a lot of places and a lot of people. But again, it's just the concept of this math. If the median income in your area is $25,000, they're not going to be able to pay you $1,000 a month in rent. It's just not going to happen. You might get the one-off every once in a while, stumble into something, get lucky, somebody relocating from another part of the country. Then they get there and go, oh, this place is a shithole. I don't want to live in this neighborhood. And then they just leave. So you'll get lucky every once in a while. But yeah, do the math, do your market survey. And then I think I talk about this in the book. I can't remember, but I had a property manager, my first property manager, actually, she taught me a lesson. Bruce, you want me to get $75 extra, I think it was, for this unit. And we're going to spend about $2,000 to $2,500 to do it. She goes, stop doing that. I'm like, stop doing what? She goes, I can get you those rents that you want, those higher rents, and not have to spend the $2,000 to $2,500. Like, I was brand new at this. I was like, I was suspect. I'm not arrogant. I said, okay, look, I'm going to trust you until you either prove me right or wrong. But I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to back off. This is part of that empowering people, letting them do their jobs. And so I said, I don't believe it, but I'm going to give you a shot at it. So within 2 months, she proved me completely wrong. She got all of the units leased at the rates that I wanted, and I didn't have to spend any extra money. We just did regular make-readies, made sure it was clean and safe, and that was it. So again, she taught me that, don't go in and just start doing all these upgrades until you know the highest you can get for your property. And then that you have that base, now start doing some upgrades on top of that.
Got it. Yeah, that was one of the things I did wrong. Like I said, my Sandbox 4 unit was I upgraded it way too much for that market. And it took me like 2 or 3 years to kind of recover from that CapEx that I did, because I was putting all nice stuff in it, and the market was just not at a place where it was willing to pay for it yet. So it was only 4 units. So lesson learned there. Do the market, make sure the market will support the upgrades that you want. Or like your property manager said, just go big on marketing and make them clean, safe. And you can probably get a lot of the benefit without having to put a lot of the CapEx, kind of like that 80-20 rule.
Right.
Got it. All right. So I'll touch on this a little bit. In the book, you mentioned, you don't mention, you have like a whole chapter on networking. And it's not, you talk about introverts and extroverts and all that, where in the book, kind of like it really doesn't matter. Like, you're going to have to get out there. If this is your goal, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and get out there and network. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. Either anxiety reasons, or they don't think they're good at it. But in your book, you're like, it's something you got to do. You got to get out there and, put yourself out there, meet people, go to events, go to meetups, start your own meetup. It's just part of the game.
Right. So I think one of the biggest parts about trying to do this and trying to understand if you have what it takes to do this, you have to be self-aware. Mm-hmm. You have to. I am self-aware. It took me a long time to get there, because being self-aware means you got to be honest with yourself about the shit you suck at.
Yes.
And nobody wants to admit that we suck at things, right? Oh, I'm Superman. I'll never die. I can do everything as well or better than everybody. Nobody can tell me how to do anything. Well, I think that's kind of hardwired into most of us. It's the ego. Well, I finally had to realize I'm an extrovert in a big room where I know my topic and I know the people in the room, right? I can stand on a stage and talk to 10 to 20,000 people. No problem. It actually lights me up. It lights me on fire. I love everything about that. You put me in a room with 20 people that I don't know and just a cold cocktail hour mixer, I literally freeze. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make small talk. I've never had a panic attack. I don't know what they're like, but I'm imagining that's the closest that I've ever come to a panic attack. I freeze. And I get really anxious, and I will look for the first and the fastest way to scoot out the back door. I literally will, knowing I need to talk to these people. I need to meet these people, but my brain won't let me. So I walk out and I kick myself all the way out the door, but I don't know how to do it. And I freeze. But my wife hates being on stage, but she is the best that I've ever met at work in a room. She used to be a flight attendant. That's exactly what she's good at, is striking up just one-on-one conversations with strangers, finding something in common to talk to them about. So what I learned, being self-aware, I'm not too proud to admit this, I follow her like a puppy. We'll go find somebody. She strikes up a conversation. I can work myself into the conversation, and then she'll walk off and do it again. I'll break off this conversation, then I'll go follow her again, and I'll work my way. I know what works for me and I know what doesn't work for me. And I had to adapt to make sure that we did this right. It's all about being self-aware and know what you're strong at. And if you're not strong at the networking piece, hopefully you've got somebody, a spouse, if they're engaged with you in this business, or maybe a business partner or somebody that can get out there for you. Yeah, you have to network.
And there's definitely a bunch of like books out there and resources to help you out with, like you said, making small talk and stuff like that. Because for me, being in the military, and this was a weakness that I didn't realize I had until we had to go out there and start raising money, was I don't get anxious. I don't, I have my confidence about me, but I just don't I can be in a room and I have no desire to just go up to strangers and just chat with them, chit chat, small talk. I'm perfectly fine and content just sitting there and just kind of just being there. But that doesn't work. That's not going to get, people engage with you and asking you, what you do and eventually, partnerships or in deals or something like that, build those relationships.
Yeah.
So I was just something I had to be, like you said, self-aware of, like, hey, I'm just really not good with this. So grab some books or like you said, get a partner who has that, has no problem going up and, chum it up with random people they just met.
Right.
So that was our take, was I just bring somebody else along that has that charisma about them. All right. So in the book as well, I think it was chapter 4, tax protests and cost segregation. So this is a lot of stuff that most people, especially cost seg on the smaller properties, that it's a word or phrase that they've never even heard before, was doing cost segregation. Like, you're not going to do a cost seg on a duplex. I never even heard of it until I started reading, educating myself more about the bigger properties. And then the tax protest. This was something that I didn't know was a thing until we started getting into the Texas market. In Michigan, it wasn't really talked about a lot. So those are some very actionable steps in the book of these things are out there, they exist, and they will turbocharge your investment and your business plan.
Well, it won't only turbocharge your business plan, it will save it, right? Because if you get crushed on a new tax assessment, I mean, it's devastating to your returns. You're chugging along, hitting the returns you told everybody you would probably get, 6 to 8%, let's say, and then you get slammed with a 40% increase in taxes. That might go down to 4% return now instead of a 6 to 8% return. So I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day who's a super successful national syndicator, and he never really thought about it. He did it the first year of ownership, but he never revisited it. And talking to him, and I told him that, look, we do it every single year. And he's like, oh crap, we've never thought about doing that. He said, as soon as I get off this phone, we're going to, I'm going to reach out to my people, or we're going to get ready for this tax protest year. Protest it every single year. But the big part to that story for me is maybe even a bigger deal than Bruce is, as far as units and properties owned and all that. But he learned something from me, got it all figured out. Don't be too arrogant. Listen to smart people around you. You'll never know it all. Somebody is always going to give you something that you just never considered.
Absolutely. That was, and this was something that we got from our property manager. The tax protest was, who's in Texas there in our market there. And he brought it up and kind of just schooled us on the whole thing. Had to go back and do a bunch of Google searches. Like, is this really a thing that people do? And he's like, absolutely, every year. And you know what? They're going to do it for free. They're going to do it based off of the commission that they get, or they get a cut of whatever they save you.
Right. So over the last probably 3 weeks, I've gotten 3 tax refund checks, all over $30,000 per property. Right. So 3 of the properties, we actually went to a full-blown lawsuit here in Texas, and we won the lawsuit. We won the hearing, and one property got a $39,000 refund, one was a $33,000, and one was a $32,000 refund. That's even on a 250 unit, 300 unit property, that's still sizable. That makes a big difference. So fight it every year you can. I don't know what your specific municipality does, and I don't know, but in Texas, I can protest it every single year.
Yep. That's what he said. He's like, that's what we're going to do. Yep. And I was like, okay, I'm following your lead on this. So I'm excited for that. So now let's get into the ugly, right? Because syndicating is a bitch. So I've done, I don't know, probably 10 deals before this last one. This last deal we did was a 48 unit, and it was our first syndication. And I thought I knew a pretty good amount about deals, and I got schooled a lot over the last 3 months of all these things I didn't know. It is not easy. And there's so much stuff that we did wrong. We didn't get killed on anything, luckily, but there was a lot of things that we misstepped that could have been bad if we didn't catch it. If we didn't have at least a little bit of background to be able to catch, like, hey, our ship's going in the wrong trajectory here. And we're able to catch it and kind of redirect it. But one of the first things that I think most people don't understand is how much money is actually at risk going into a deal, especially these big deals. Most people are like, oh, well, the EMD. But then we can just write it in the contract about we'll get the EMD back. And I'm like, you have no idea. EMD is like maybe half or less of the money that's actually at risk. Like, you have so much sunk costs. The second you pick up the phone, that's just gone. Like, you're never going to get back. You have legal fees. You can spend 10 to 30 grand on between your lawyers on getting the documents set up. All the inspections, phase 1s, phase 2s, property inspections. That's a sunk cost. As soon as you make the call to that guy, gone. $5 grand gone down the drain. never getting it back. Appraisals, lender fees, double funding CapEx, which you mentioned in the book. A lot of people don't even acknowledge that for doing CapEx holdbacks. So there's just a lot of money that, aside from the EMD, because even if you back out, you could get the EMD back, but then there's another 10, 20, 30 grand that's just gone. That's just the price to pay the game. So the underlying theme of that is like, if you can't stomach those losses, if you can't, stomach losing 10 grand, 20 grand on just sinking costs, just to, put your chips on the table, then that this might not be, the game for you, as being an operator.
Right. And I try to go into it in the book and tell you kind of a general range of costs associated with the different people that you're going to bring in, the attorneys, the inspections, the app fee, right? So Fannie Mae will have over a $30,000 loan application fee. And you keep saying EMD, EMD, EMD. You're right. That's huge. Just in case people don't know what those 3 letters mean, it's earnest money deposit, right? So as the syndicator, you can do it however you want to do it, but I kind of believe that you need to have that money yourself. Yep. Now, you might be able to find somebody that will put up all the money that needs to be fronted to get this property closed. And then they're going to expect, some kicker for that. They're going to expect a little piece of your GP, or they're going to expect something for putting up all the money up front. Most people aren't going to be able to find that person. So my rule of thumb on a first-time purchase is it's going to be somewhere between 30 and 40, maybe even 45% of the purchase price that you kind of sort of have to write a check for at the closing table, right? Because you have down payment. And a lot of people get stuck on, it's just the down payment. No. It's the down payment. It's the closing costs. It's the rehab that will not be rolled into your loan. And it's also operating capital. You better have some kind of a safety net to get you through the first 30 days, and then leave it alone. Don't think, I got through the first 30 days, now I can spend that operating capital. No, operating capital is there to keep the machine rolling on a monthly basis if you have a hiccup in operations for some reason. And a lot of people have figured out with the coronavirus shutdown that, oh my God, I don't have enough reserves. I think operating capital for me is usually 1 month's expenses, including debt service. Mm-hmm. But I'm starting to reassess that. Maybe it needs to go to 2 months. That's a lot. But again, that's just another piece of the puzzle that you need to raise coming in. But, especially you get into buying a $1 million property, you have 1% earnest money, that's $10,000. You have a loan application fee, that could be $20,000 easy, $30,000 right there. Inspections, maybe $1,000 to $2,000. Like you said, your syndication attorney will be anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000, maybe $20,000. Your real estate attorney, the one that does the contracts with you, that could be $3,000 to $5,000 easily. So yeah, there's a lot of money you got to put up front. And if you do enough deals, eventually those sunk costs, you're not going to get back. You're going to lose because a deal will fall apart and you're just going to be out that money. So like you said, if you can't stomach, every once in a while you're going to have a deal go south, I would not do this.
Exactly. Yep. And then, if you're scared of like, you have to do the deal because you're worried about losing those funds, and that emotionally drives you to make irrational decisions on, figuring out a way to make a deal work because you don't want to lose those upfront costs, you're in a very bad place if you put yourself in that position. So one of the other quotes, this one actually got us, was the insurance, getting the insurance quotes. And this was something that, we have our due diligence checklist that we're kind of going down, doing our daily calls, and the insurance, the sellers, like, were just dragging their feet on getting the loss runs. And then we're out like 2 weeks before closing, we're going down our checklist. Okay, what haven't we got? What haven't got? And it's like, we don't have an insurance quote yet. Like, how did this happen? And then, obviously it's our fault. We weren't pacing it because it was kind of just one of those things like, okay, get the loss runs to the insurance broker. They'll shop around. They'll give us some quotes. We pick one. We bind the property. And it wasn't really, it seemed like a low threat thing. And then we get like 2 weeks before closing, we realize, holy crap, like, we don't have insurance quotes. We don't have a binder. This will delay close. Even those little things that people don't think about of during your due diligence documents, like you need to stay on everything. There's so many spinning, plates or whatever you want to call it, balls in the air as an operator that you can't afford to just drop any of them. Because like for our deal, luckily we caught it 2 weeks out and not 2 days out that we weren't bound. Because that would have delayed close. We wouldn't have gotten financing. The lender would have held the financing back, and we would have had delayed close for something like an insurance binder, and that would have looked really bad on us. And then also broke the contract. Worst case scenario, the seller walks, and we couldn't.
Right, and that's important. It depends on how you have your contract structured. If you didn't have the foresight to, or your attorney didn't, to have like the ability to extend once or twice for 10, 20, 30 days, whatever. Yeah, if you don't have that in there, the seller, you're right, could just say, nope, you failed to perform. Give me your earnest money, go away. So you got to be real careful. Like you said, there's tons of balls in the air when you're going through this. You have about 60 days on average, 70 days on, somewhere in that area to get it all put together. And there's just, it's a flurry of activity. Your first one or two, it's going to be stressful as hell, right? It becomes easy the more you do. But that's why, again, I don't think maybe you need a mentor, right? Yeah. Whether you have to pay for that mentor or you could find somebody that, will do it for you for free, which is really hard because most syndicators, most experienced people, they're really busy. They don't have time to just give you free time all the time. But yeah, dude, you need to have a mentor, somebody that has been through it and will remind you, oh, wait, have you got your insurance yet? Oh, crap. No, I forgot. So that's why I really think having a mentor is pretty much mandatory for your first one or two deals.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of room for error when you're dealing with these size properties. Like I said, it's not a duplex where you can make a bunch of mistakes and what's the worst that could happen on a duplex, right? Or a 4-unit or something like that, residential size property. Right. You're not going to go bankrupt over it in most cases. These you could if you mess up on these. So switching gears here, what is your favorite ninja trick for increasing NOI by either increasing income or decreasing expenses?
So ninja trick, it makes it sound like, well, it's ninja, so nobody's going to see it coming, right? You're going to sneak it up on people. No, you know what? One of the biggest things that we do when we take over, we have the standard things that we're going to try to implement at all properties if it's not already been done. But one thing we like to do is, a month or two after we take over, we'll send out, again, we are the management company, so we have the control of doing this, but we'll send out a letter to all the residents, thanking them, for a seamless transition. And, we're so happy to be your landlords, all, whatever that thing is, get that out to them, but say, hey, one thing we'd like to know is, please take a couple of minutes. Let us know if there's anything that you feel is missing from this property. Anything that we could do that would make where you live better. And anybody that we take your idea and implement, we'll give you a $100 rent credit or a $200 Amazon gift card or a grocery store, something. We're going to give them something. So what happens with that is it helps build community because now they feel listened to, heard, respected because they thought, I got to take part in what these people are going to provide for me. So they listen to me. They care. That's huge. The emotion of that is massive. But now on, the callous business side of it, because we're in a business, we've got to make money or we can't provide good, clean, stable housing for people. If 1, 2, 3 people give us ideas that we hadn't thought about, but there's a way to monetize that now. They've already told us they want us to provide this. Mm-hmm. Very often we can monetize that thing and we make money off their idea. But again, they feel like they were part of the decision-making process on something that affects where they live. So that's the biggest ninja thing, if you will. Other than that, everybody knows RUBS, implement RUBS, do unit upgrades, things like that. We build carports. If there's no carports on site, we usually limit it to 20 to 25% of the property. Because if I cover every single space, I can charge everybody for parking. I don't like to do it that way. I like to create it as a premium. People can take it or leave it. It's an a la carte offering, so they don't feel forced into something. That comes with a really big ROI. It's usually 50% or more. And depending on how big your property is, that can make your property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So that's one of our favorite ones.
Yeah, that's huge. Covered parking, 25%. I just took note of that because I'm sure Duke probably pinged too, because we have in our property, we have like a lot of parking, like more than this property normally would or should have had. So we have a lot of extra just parking spaces that we'd easily be able to redirect some funds into that, and maybe just build one or one row of stalls, test it out, and see if that the market will take that.
Right. I usually pay $930, $940 for every covered parking space that we create. And depending on the neighborhood and the city, I can rent those out for $25 to $45 a month. So, you rent that out for, say, $40 a month, that's $480 a year, right? So if I am paying less than $960 a month, then it's at least a 50% return. So yeah, the return numbers are really, really good there. And most people, that came about because we asked residents on a purchase one time, said, what can we provide for you? Man, it's 115 degrees in the summer sometimes in Texas. I'd like to keep myself out of the heat. Oh, well, hell, we heard that from multiple people. So we thought, well, why don't we just build carports? And that was the aha moment for us. And now we do it on every single property if they don't have them.
That's amazing. That made this whole show worth it. For me anyway, selfishly. So one of the important things on that, you were mentioning the idea cards, the comment cards, and we do something similar. We haven't done idea cards, but we've done maintenance cards where here's our welcome packet, here's our letter, the tenant takeover letter, and then we staple a card to it on what are the top 3 or 4 things that deferred maintenance that's inside your unit that you want to get fixed. And one, if we take those in, one, we have the insider of like, here's all the things wrong with that unit that we missed on due diligence. But 2, if we prioritize them and fix them quickly, that gives the tenants like a really good feeling of confidence. Hey, this new management company, they're going to take care of us and, building that community. And the other side of it is that second order and third order effect of doing that. The idea card thing is that when you're building a community, they're going to have a lot more pride and ownership in that community, because it was their idea. Like they're seeing their idea that you said, to your point of they're being heard, listened to, they're being heard. You took their ideas, you implemented them, and they're going to take care of the community a lot more. They're going to have that pride and ownership because it was their idea. So they're going to take ownership in that, and that's going to be huge. And that's something you can't put an ROI on, but there is an intrinsic value there.
Right. Something that we've learned and thought about. We're always thinking outside of the box. What can we do to make life better for our residents, life better for our staffs? And with, Corona, I'm not in the weeds because I'm not on site. I'm at the corporate level, right? So I am out of the firing line, so I can have clear thoughts while everybody else is trying to keep everything rolling. And I'm always looking around. Okay, this has happened. We're going to deal with it. What will come from this? What can we do better? What will we do to make us stronger coming out of this? So what we've done at a lot of properties in the past, we'll, have a free yoga hour on a Sunday or a free Zumba class or, things like this that, we pay for this instructor to come in and we'll have 10, 20, 30 people come out at our pool area and maybe exercise by the pool Sunday morning. So then I thought, okay, well, what we might be able to do, because what we started to realize, we all know this, but it really came home hard for us that the average person in the U.S., especially in a C property, a C or a D property especially, they have no savings. It's reckless. It's crazy. They have no savings. They have no ability to weather any kind of a short-term storm at all, right? So I thought, well, now wait a minute. We can help them, and by helping them, it will definitely help us. So why not, instead of teaching them Zumba classes, which is healthy, that's good, what if we give them financial literacy for free? Because they need it. Most of the people in the nation need it, not just my residents. Almost everybody needs it because they don't know anything about it. So offer some sorts of program that will teach them financial literacy, but then that has the benefit for us that maybe they will understand the importance of an emergency fund. And if they have a 6 to 12 month emergency fund, they will pay our rent, right? So there is some of it that's a little selfish, but we're going to try to help them, but it will in turn help us. So that's one thing. Again, always thinking outside of the box, always trying to be different, better, and differentiate ourselves. So that's the next thing that we're going to try.
Yeah, that's amazing. I heard you talk about, again, back to that that call with Gino, you mentioned that, and I was like, man, that's a genius idea. That entrepreneurial spirit of always finding or looking for ways to add value everywhere. Like it never just turns off. So that's awesome. That's it for me. So for those who haven't seen the whole thing, so syndication's a bitch. I see the hard copies behind you. I got the Kindle one. So if you haven't gotten it, it's an awesome book. I got 2 pages of notes that from the book with just my own reading. So absolute value there. So thank you for coming on and spending this Saturday morning with us.
Well, I appreciate you being on. I mean, for having me on. But, to go into the book a little bit more, the easiest way to do it, go to the website, apt-guy.com. And the first page you're going to see is all about the book. It'll give you kind of a peek inside what it's all about. So you know kind of what you're buying. Then it'll give you a direct link to the Amazon page too. So if you're interested, I'm trying to teach you how to do a syndication from the beginning to the end, all the expected costs, timelines, everything you need for free. So you don't have to go pay somebody $20,000 to $30,000. But I still think you need a mentor. Don't ever forget that. But yeah, go check out the book.
All right, Duc.
All right, yeah. So what is the best book that you recommend other than your own?
Other than my own, right? I never go into the obvious that everybody knows, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, Tony Robbins, anything, right? To me, there's a couple of them. Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning, David Osborne's Wealth Can't Wait, and Garrett Gunderson's Killing Sacred Cows. Yep. It's not, none of them are directly talking about real estate. Now, David Osborne talks a lot about real estate because that's where he's made his money. But it's just helping people gain a better understanding of how money works and how money flows through our economy and why most of the crap we've been taught is totally wrong, right? And it also goes into why you owe it to yourself and your family to be as wealthy as you can possibly be. And it's not all about materialism. It's how many people can you help if you have more money? It affords you the ability to be able to help more people and be giving with your time and with your money, because you get to a certain level, you're not stuck in a cubicle all day with your head down for 120 hours a week like I was in retail. You have time to see how can I help. So those are my 3 top books that I refer to everybody.
Great. So what is your superpower?
My superpower, I have a really, really, really good way, I think, of cutting through crap and making you understand what you're doing and why are you doing what you're doing. It makes no sense. I give tough love to a lot of people that ask for my help because I realize not many people in their lives will give them tough love. They're going to coddle them, pat them on the ass and say, oh, you're doing great. Bullshit. If you're doing stupid shit, I want to tell you. I want to do it in a very loving way, in a very supportive way, but I feel an obligation to just tell you the truth. So that's really my superpower, I think, is I have a very high level of EQ, which is emotional intelligence, and I really want to help people. I have a phenomenal life, and I want other people to have the same phenomenal life, but a lot of times we get in our own ways and get in our own heads, so I try to help people get out of their own heads a lot of times.
Right. So as we wrap this up, do you have any requests for my audience, and how can people reach out to you?
Well, again, just apt-guy.com. You'll find information on what we're up to. We've got blogs up. We've got Ask the Apartment Guy stuff, but there's a lot on there about the book. So that's the best way to find out what's going on. Or you can find me on Instagram, apt.guy. And that's probably the 2 best ways to get a hold of me or to kind of see what we're up to.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate being on here, guys. It was a great way to spend a Saturday.
I think that was awesome. Super grateful to have a guy like Bruce take time out of it. And it's a Saturday morning, take time out of his Saturday morning away from his family to sit down and talk shop with us. Very, very grateful for that. I took away some huge nuggets of information. The 2 biggest things that we're going to be implementing in our company that I took out of this was those idea cards. So in the call, I mentioned that we do delayed or deferred maintenance cards when we take over an asset, but I never thought about doing a idea card program where we offer the tenants to give us a list of ideas that, what do they want to see in the community, and then offer prizes if we pick their idea. I thought that was genius. We're going to be rolling that out into our program in our systems as well. One of the other things is covered parking. And I mentioned the call that in Michigan, I hate covered parking because the snow plows, hit them. So when we moved from Michigan to Texas, I never would have thought to add covered parking as an option there, just because my past beliefs, or just that thing ingrained in me, is that covered parking is kind of a pain in the butt. But in a place like Texas, where it gets really, really hot, I can imagine 150 degrees in these cars as they sit down out there and bake in the sun, to offer covered park and be able to charge a premium for that could really boost the NOI for your investors and your business plan, which is, of course, the name of the game, is increasing NOI. So those are the two biggest things. Also, going over the things in his book of, dispelling a lot of beliefs. Like, look, this is a risky business. This is the big leagues. You can lose a lot if you don't know what you're doing. So get a mentor. You can join a program. Start meetups, get out there, network as much as you can. This is a business that you're not going to want to go it alone. And in his book, he definitely outlines some of the biggest mistakes that people make. One of the ones I see is a lot of newer investors, and even ourselves, when we started, is not underestimating how much money is actually at risk, because it's way more than the EMD, the earnest money deposit, right? You have all the legal fees, the inspections, the appraisals, the lender fees, the CapEx, all these things that are just sunk costs. Like for us on our last deal, it was easily 40 grand that we would have lost if that deal didn't go through. And that's not even including the earnest money deposit. That's just everything all those services that we paid for upfront to position ourselves during due diligence to buy that property. That would have been gone if we would have walked for that deal. Even if we got our EMD back, we still would have been out 20, 30, 40 grand. And that's just the call to play the game, right? You gotta put chips on the table. You gotta have that risk money at stake. And if you can't stomach that, if you don't have the disposition to be able to risk that much money, maybe syndicating as a sponsor or an operator might not be for you. But you can always leverage, and that's the beauty of syndication. You can always leverage everything syndication has to offer, or large multifamily has to offer, as a silent partner, as a limited partner, and still learn just as much as everybody else. Only you don't have to make the calls. You don't have to take on that responsibility or that at risk, as much risk as the GP does. So awesome book, awesome call. Just I'm speechless of how awesome that last hour was.
Yeah, that was an amazing call. And speaking from experience being in both the LP and GP position, I definitely prefer being an LP. No stress, and yeah, it's much easier.
Yeah, and I joke about it all the time whenever we're at meetups or networking. Is like, that's my goal in life, is to be a career LP. And apparently I'm not there yet. I'm not daddy Warbucks, where I'm just sitting on, a couple million, where I can just, peel off 50,000, 100,000 every time a deal comes up, and just be an LP and live off the distributions. But that's why I'm being a sponsor. So I can be a sponsor. I can build up my net worth, build up some liquidity. And then when I retire, I'm going to retire to being a career LP. I'll know the game. I'll know how to underwrite properties. I'll know how to assess risk. But I don't feel like doing the work anymore. I want to enjoy my life. I want to travel. I want to enjoy my family. And I'll be in a position to where I can just be an LP. Just when I have a sponsor team that I like, brings me a good deal, I can invest, $100,000, $200,000 with them, and then, jump on a plane and, go on a vacation and not have to worry about the stress of operating. I love the stress now. I love solving problems in my entrepreneurial spirit. But again, my goal is to build that nest egg and then retire to be a career LP. That's my personal goal.
Yep. All right. So if you are interested in connecting with us, go to tricityequity.com to learn more. To connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and More. And if you found value in this podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. If you know anyone who might resonate with today's podcast, please share the episode with them. See you next time.